As he's shaking the mace, he says, "This is your last chance to evacuate the property and leave." And Morrison turned around and said, "This is your last chance to eat me," and pushed the cop.
Well, that's how the Doors frontman Jim Morrison ended up getting arrested right here in New Haven. It happened 50 years ago. News 8's Kent Pierce caught up with some people who were there that night. It's tonight's Closer Look.
Light My Fire was a new hit single. The Doors were becoming famous. Then a trip to New Haven 50 years ago made their lead singer infamous.
A cop came to the stage and said, "Jim, tone it down or we're going to have to take you off the stage."
Jake Russell has filled his downtown New Haven hot dog stand with memorabilia of that night. His father, Joey Russell, played Happy the Clown on Channel 8 years ago and was part owner of the New Haven Blades hockey team. They played at the New Haven Arena, which hosted concerts as well as hockey.
"You want to go? Hey, Dad, I want to go." "You're going."
Jake's brothers Carl and Hannon did go to the Doors concert at the arena. It stood where the FBI building is now. A little ironic considering the confrontation Morrison had with law enforcement.
Making him what we think is the first rock star to be arrested on stage.
I asked Chaz and AJ in the morning what their listeners know and heard from Dean.
Dean called in and said his dad was playing in a band that was opening for the Doors.
Dean's father has since passed, but was a guitar player in 1967.
The group that my father was in at the time, he was in a show band called Tommy and the Rivieras. If Tommy's out there listening, he's still alive. Hey, Tommy, how are you?
It turns out the lead singer of Tommy and the Rivieras was out there. Tom Jeanette gave up the music business but kept his scrapbooks and remembers 1967 like it was yesterday. He remembers how the backstage area was set up.
A dressing room attached to a bathroom, attached to a dressing room, so on and so forth, all the way around the building. So when Morrison decided that he wanted a little bit of attention from the brunette that he wound up with, he just kept walking through doors until he stopped in our bathroom.
It was Dean's father, the guitar player, who walked in on the couple, but he didn't recognize Morrison. He said,
"Who the hell are you and what are you doing back here?" Of course, Morrison, typical Morrison, told my father to go F himself.
Not only was that rude, but the band was worried about a stranger in the bathroom because they had new costumes that did not have pockets.
So all of our cash and our wallets and our car keys and everything else are sitting on this table. So I opened up the door to the hallway, which is where all the police were.
This is how Oliver Stone dramatized what happened next in the 1991 movie The Doors. Tommy says Morrison said, "Eat me," to the officer, who then pulled out a can of mace.
As he's shaking the mace, he says, "This is your last chance to evacuate the property and leave." And Morrison turned around and said, "This is your last chance to eat me," and pushed the cop. So I opened up the door to the hall and hollered, "Fight!" And about 10 police came in and just proceeded to knock the hell out of Morrison.
However, another witness says police never beat Morrison up.
"I would be so honest about that, and I'd be ashamed if that happened, but no, sir."
That's retired New Haven police officer Bob Meyerholtz. He was backstage when Morrison got maced.
Mr. Morrison's manager spotted it and ran over and said, "What's going on? That's Jim Morrison of the Doors."
Officer Meyerholtz says Lieutenant Jim Kelly was in charge that night.
And he said, "We're going to place Mr. Morrison under arrest, but we will do it after the concert. We're going to permit him to perform as long as he behaves himself."
While Jim Morrison recovered, the concert producer told Tommy to go on and keep playing.
Every time I grabbed the mic to say, "Well, thank you very much," he'd do this from the side wing. Stretch it. Stretch it.
As we know from the movie, the Doors eventually took the stage. In the crowd, the Russell brothers, who had no idea what happened backstage.
The bass is playing, the piano is playing, and Jim Morrison goes into one of his talks.
A couple songs in, Morrison tells the crowd about his run-in with police.
This little man came in, a little blue hat, a little blue suit.
Everybody was a little shocked when he went into this tirade using the kind of language he did.
He used that word that we're not supposed to use in polite public. He said F several times.
That was it. Lights go up, and all of a sudden you could now see the police starting to kind of get closer and closer to him.
Then he started to talk about New Haven pigs, and Lieutenant Kelly said, no, we're not going to permit this.
There is a short film clip that shows what happened. Lieutenant Kelly, on the right, arrests Morrison. At the very end of this clip, you'll see Officer Meyerholtz jump in and grab Morrison's arm.
And we escorted him off the back of the stage, and he never resisted.
Did he seem drunk or stoned or both?
Oh, God, yes.
Morrison got dragged off for that famous mug shot. Bond was set at $7,500.
And Mr. Morrison got out his wallet, and he had the money right in his wallet, so he paid his own bond.
Speaking of paperwork, there in Tommy's scrapbook is the official police report. Since he called in the first officer, Thomas Jeanette is the official complainant. The whole thing would have faded further into memory, like the arena itself, which is long gone, except for the fact that 2 years later, in 1969, the Doors wrote another song with some very specific lyrics about the Elm City.
Blood in the streets in the town of New Haven.
The song is called Peace Frog, but was there really blood on the streets after the concert?
This was not people rioting in the streets and burning things and everything. It was just sort of deer in the headlights look everybody had. What has going on here?
Tommy says it was reporters who confronted police.
So the press did what the press usually does and got in the way of the police, and the police started arresting them.
Chaz and AJ in the morning.
Dean on the radio had his own theory about Peace Frog.
The blood in the streets thing is actually because of all the racial tension and the rioting that was going on in the late 60s.
That could be, but for most people, the Doors and the town of New Haven mean one thing.
First time in the history of entertainment that a professional performer got arrested on stage in the middle of a performance.
And the fact that the Doors musically still live on, I think resonates so strongly with so many people in the New Haven area.
And why people still get a kick out of all those memories in Jake's Diggity Dogs 50 years later. In New Haven, I'm Kent Pierce, News 8.